I always thought if something shattered my marriage, it would be something dramatic, a scandal, a fight, or even some irreconcilable difference we couldn't overcome. What I never imagined was that the truth would come out of my 5-year-old daughter's mouth, spoken with the innocent bluntness only a child can deliver. Ashley, my sweet, playful little girl, had no idea that her casual comment would unravel everything I thought I knew about my wife, Lucy, and our life together. One sentence, simple, unassuming, was all it took for my world to start falling apart. I'm Austin, 30, married to Lucy, 27, for 6 years. We have Ashley, our beautiful and bright 5-year-old, who's at that age where every discovery is magical and every question has infinite follow-ups. Life for us was good, or so I thought. I work in IT, which keeps me busy, but I've always tried to prioritize family time, whether that's weekends at the park, movie nights, or cheering on Ashley as she learned to swim. Swimming lessons were Lucy's idea. She wanted Ashley to grow up confident in the water and felt it was an essential life skill. I thought it was a great idea, too. We found a local pool with a well-reviewed kids program, and that's where we met Coach Ethan. He was friendly, maybe too friendly in hindsight, with an easy charm that made kids adore him and parents comfortable. Lucy was enthusiastic about him from the start, saying he was perfect for Ashley's lessons. For a while, things felt normal. I'd drop in occasionally to watch Ashley's lessons, though Lucy took her most of the time since her schedule was more flexible. I enjoyed watching Ashley splash around and try to conquer her fear of putting her face underwater. Lucy always came home glowing, talking about how much Ashley was improving and how wonderful Coach Ethan was with the kids. I didn't think much of it at the time, just a proud mom bragging about her daughter. But then little details started to stand out. Lucy began dressing up more when taking Ashley to her lessons. Not full-blown date night attire, but enough to raise an eyebrow. She also became strangely insistent about being the one to take Ashley to the pool. If I offered to step in, she'd politely but firmly decline, saying it was their thing. I didn't think much of it. Lucy had always been hands-on as a mom, and if she wanted to handle swimming lessons, who was I to argue? But then there were the late returns. Lucy began coming home later and later from the pool, claiming Ashley had wanted to stay longer or that another mom had cornered her for advice about parenting. I chalked it up to her social nature, though the explanations sometimes felt overly rehearsed. One evening, I asked Ashley about her lessons, hoping to get her perspective. She beamed as she talked about how much fun she had and how Coach Ethan always gave her high fives when she did well. Then, out of nowhere, she added something that made my stomach twist. Mommy talks to Coach Ethan a lot after class. They always laugh, and she says he's really nice. I felt a pang of unease but brushed it off. What could it mean, really? Ethan was friendly, and Lucy liked to chat. It wasn't unusual. Still, the way Ashley said it lingered in the back of my mind. It wasn't until a few weeks later that the seed Ashley had planted started to grow into something I couldn't ignore. I'd taken the day off work and decided to join them at the pool. Lucy seemed hesitant but didn't protest. When we arrived, Ethan greeted Lucy with a warmth that felt off. It wasn't just polite or professional. It was familiar. Too familiar. Lucy laughed a little too easily at his jokes, and I caught her glancing at him more than once during the lesson. My stomach churned, but I pushed the feelings aside. I told myself I was imagining things. After the lesson, Lucy offered to bring Ashley home herself, saying she wanted to stay and chat with the other moms. I didn't press the issue, but as I drove home, my mind raced. Every late night, every excuse, every offhand comment about Ethan, it all started adding up. Later that evening, Ashley mentioned something that stopped me cold. Mommy said Coach Ethan is funny, and they have secrets. She said it so casually, like she was sharing a fun fact about her favorite cartoon. My heart sank. I didn't say anything to Ashley. I didn't want her to sense my growing unease. But the comment lit a fire in my mind. That night, as Lucy slept beside me, I lay awake, piecing together every detail I'd dismissed over the past few months. Her sudden enthusiasm for taking Ashley to lessons, the extra time spent at the pool, her newfound attention to her appearance, the late nights, and now Ashley's innocent observations. It was too much to ignore. I wasn't ready to confront Lucy. Not yet. If there was something going on, I needed to know for sure. I needed proof. Until then, I would play the part of the oblivious husband, just as Lucy had been playing the role of the devoted wife. The first cracks in our life didn't come with a fight or a dramatic revelation. They came with small, subtle changes, moments I almost brushed aside but couldn't quite ignore. After Ashley's casual comment about her mother and Coach Ethan having secrets, I started paying closer attention. The truth wasn't staring me in the face yet, but it was there, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to make itself known. One evening, Lucy brought up the idea of increasing Ashley's swimming lessons. She'd been in a cheerful mood all day, almost glowing, as though she couldn't wait to share something with me. Over dinner, she casually mentioned how much Ashley loved the water and how swimming was becoming her favorite activity. She suggested moving Ashley's lessons from once a week to 3 times a week. It sounded innocent enough. Ashley did seem to enjoy her time at the pool, and she was becoming more confident in the water. But the suggestion felt off to me. 3 times a week was a big jump, especially for a 5-year-old. It also seemed unnecessary. Ashley was already doing well, and the once-a-week sessions were plenty to help her improve at her age. Lucy framed it as being for Ashley's benefit, emphasizing how much progress she'd make with more frequent lessons. She said it would be good for Ashley to have consistent activity and develop a strong skill early on. It all made sense on paper, but something about her tone left me unsettled. She seemed just a little too enthusiastic, as if the idea wasn't entirely about Ashley. Her suggestion came with an added caveat. She wanted to handle all the extra lessons herself. "I've already got the routine down," she said, brushing it off as a matter of convenience. At the time, I nodded and went along with it, trying to avoid overthinking. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than she was letting on. As the weeks passed and the new schedule began, I noticed Lucy becoming increasingly invested in the swimming lessons. She seemed more energized and upbeat than I'd seen her in months. She started talking about Coach Ethan more often, always praising his coaching style and how much Ashley adored him. It was subtle at first, but the way she mentioned him felt overly familiar. She seemed to light up whenever his name came up, which only made the unease I'd been feeling grow stronger. The changes didn't stop there. Lucy began putting more effort into her appearance before heading to the pool, choosing outfits that seemed far more polished than what was needed for sitting poolside at a kid's lesson. She bought new clothes, styled her hair differently, and even started wearing makeup regularly, something she usually reserved for special occasions. When I commented on how nice she looked, she shrugged it off, saying she just wanted to feel good about herself. It wasn't just her appearance that shifted. Lucy started coming home later and later from the pool, claiming she and Ashley stayed behind to chat with other parents or that Ashley wanted extra time to play in the water. She always had a reasonable explanation, but the excuses started to feel rehearsed, like she'd already thought of them before I even asked. Ashley, on the other hand, seemed to love the new schedule. She talked endlessly about how much fun she was having, how Ethan gave her high fives, and how proud her mom was of her progress. It was hard to feel anything but proud when she showed me how she could float on her back or paddle across the shallow end. But even in her excitement, there were little comments that stuck with me. Mentions of her mom and Ethan talking after lessons, or how they laughed together while Ashley played with the other kids. I didn't want to be paranoid, but the pieces were starting to add up in a way I couldn't ignore. Lucy's sudden enthusiasm for these extra lessons, her glowing mentions of Ethan, and her newfound attention to her appearance all pointed to something more than just wanting Ashley to succeed in the water. I tried to push the doubts aside, telling myself it was all in my head. Lucy was a devoted mother, and Ashley's happiness was her priority. But the nagging feeling in my chest wouldn't go away. Every time Lucy came home with that same glowing smile, talking about how great the lessons had been, I found myself questioning whether the excitement was really about Ashley or something else entirely. I knew I needed to tread carefully. If there was something going on, I couldn't confront Lucy without proof. I needed to be sure. Until then, I played along, pretending everything was fine while quietly observing. The unease I'd been feeling about Lucy and her newfound enthusiasm for Ashley's swimming lessons lingered like a cloud I couldn't shake. I told myself I was being paranoid, that Lucy was just caught up in supporting Ashley's progress. But the late nights, the extra attention to her appearance, and her glowing mentions of Coach Ethan all felt like puzzle pieces falling into place. Then something happened that I didn't see coming, a turn of events that shifted everything and made me question whether I had been focusing on the wrong thing entirely. It was a Tuesday evening, the second swim lesson of the week under the new schedule. Lucy had taken Ashley to the pool, as usual, and I stayed home to finish up some work. Around 8:30 p.m., I heard the front door open and expected to see both of them walk in, laughing and chatting about the lesson. Instead, it was just Ashley, bounding into the house with a big grin, clutching her swim bag. Behind her was a familiar face, but not Lucy's. It was Sarah, another mom from the swim group. I was startled. Sarah explained that Lucy had asked her to drop Ashley off because she'd been held up at the pool and would be home soon. She didn't elaborate, and I didn't press, though her tone suggested she wasn't thrilled about the arrangement. She smiled at Ashley, wished us a good night, and left quickly. I asked Ashley if she'd had fun, trying to keep my tone light. She chattered away happily about swimming, Ethan, and how she'd practiced diving. She didn't seem fazed by the fact that her mom wasn't with her, but my mind was racing. Why had Lucy stayed behind? What was so important that she couldn't bring Ashley home herself? And why hadn't she mentioned it to me? I didn't have long to dwell on those questions. About 40 minutes later, Lucy walked through the door, looking unusually flustered. Her hair was slightly disheveled, and her cheeks were flushed. She carried her bag tightly against her side and avoided meeting my eyes. She mumbled something about running late and immediately disappeared upstairs. Something wasn't adding up, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I checked the time on my phone and then glanced at her keys, still sitting in the bowl by the door. Her car was parked in the driveway, so if she'd stayed behind at the pool, why had Sarah been the one to bring Ashley home? I decided to investigate. I told Ashley to get ready for bed, and once she was settled, I headed out. I drove to the pool, half expecting to find it empty. But as I pulled into the parking lot, I spotted two cars, one belonging to Ethan and another I didn't recognize. The lights in the pool area were off, but a faint glow came from the staff office at the back of the building. I parked a few spots away and got out quietly, my heart pounding. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew I had to see for myself. As I approached the office window, I could hear voices, muffled but unmistakable. One of them was Lucy's. The scene I saw through the glass confirmed my worst fears. Lucy and Ethan were inside, sitting close together on a small couch. She was laughing, her hand resting lightly on his knee. They looked completely at ease, completely oblivious to the world outside that window. I felt a wave of nausea, but forced myself to stay calm. My first instinct was to barge in, demand an explanation, and confront them both. But something held me back, a small voice in my head telling me to think before I acted. If I stormed in, they'd deny everything. They'd say it was innocent, that I was overreacting. I needed more than just this moment. I needed proof. I backed away slowly, careful not to make a sound. My hands were shaking as I got into my car and drove home. By the time I arrived, Lucy was back downstairs, acting like nothing had happened. She was scrolling through her phone on the couch, her expression calm and unbothered. "Everything okay?" she asked casually when she saw me, as though she hadn't just spent the last hour with another man. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just needed some fresh air." Inside, I was anything but calm. The betrayal was real, and now I had to decide what to do next. Confronting her felt inevitable, but not yet. Not until I had every piece of the puzzle in place. It's strange how kids can sense things that adults overlook. They don't always have the words to explain what they're feeling, but their honesty has a way of cutting through the noise. Ashley's words were like that. Simple, unassuming, and yet so heavy with meaning that they made me reevaluate everything I thought I knew. A few days after I saw Lucy with Ethan through that window, I sat with Ashley at the kitchen table. It was one of those rare, quiet evenings when I wasn't swamped with work and Lucy was out running errands. Ashley was coloring in her workbook, her little face scrunched in concentration as she carefully stayed inside the lines. I asked her how swimming was going, hoping to steer the conversation towards something light, something that might take my mind off the turmoil in my head. At first, she was her usual bubbly self, talking about how she could dive farther now, and how Coach Ethan had given her a high five for a perfect kick. But then her tone changed, and her words came slower, more thoughtful. She told me she didn't like how Mommy wasn't watching her as much during lessons anymore. She said Mommy always used to cheer her on, but now spent most of the time talking to Coach Ethan. She doesn't watch me like she used to, Ashley said, her voice soft but certain. She's always talking to him. I wave at her, but she doesn't see me. Hearing that hit me harder than I expected. I'd been so focused on my suspicions about Lucy and Ethan that I hadn't stopped to think about how it might be affecting Ashley. She was only 5, too young to understand what might be happening, but old enough to notice when her mom wasn't paying attention. And now, her innocent observations were shining a light on what I'd been trying to piece together. Ashley went on to explain how she felt left out during swimming lessons. She said she used to love seeing her mom clap and cheer from the sidelines, but now Mommy hardly looked up from her conversations with Ethan. She said it felt like Mommy was more interested in talking to him than watching her swim. My heart broke for her. Ashley adored her mom, and she thrived on that encouragement. The idea that Lucy's behavior was making her feel neglected made my blood boil. It wasn't just about Lucy's betrayal anymore. It was about how her actions were impacting our daughter. I kept my tone calm, not wanting to alarm Ashley or make her feel like she'd done something wrong. I asked a few more questions, gently prompting her to share what she'd noticed. She mentioned how Mommy and Coach Ethan laughed a lot, and how sometimes, when the lesson ended, they'd keep talking while she played with the other kids. She said it felt like Mommy wasn't really there anymore, even though she was sitting right by the pool. As she spoke, I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and guilt. Anger at Lucy for letting her selfish choices affect Ashley, sadness for my daughter, who deserved so much better, and guilt for not realizing sooner how deeply this was impacting her. I'd been so caught up in my suspicions and my need for proof that I hadn't stopped to consider the toll it might be taking on Ashley. After she finished talking, Ashley went back to her coloring, her mood already shifting back to her usual cheerful self. Kids are resilient like that. They bounce back from heavy moments in a way adults can't. But I couldn't shake what she'd said. Her words stuck with me long after she went to bed, replaying in my mind like a tape on loop. Lucy came home later that evening, her demeanor as casual as ever. She kissed me on the cheek, asked if Ashley was asleep, and headed upstairs to shower. It was a routine I'd seen countless times before, but now it felt hollow, like a performance she didn't even realize she was putting on. As I sat alone in the living room, I thought about what to do next. Confronting Lucy felt inevitable, but I wasn't ready yet. I needed to protect Ashley from the fallout as much as possible. She deserved stability, not the chaos that would come from an explosive argument. At the same time, I couldn't let Lucy continue to hurt her, whether intentionally or not. That night, I made a decision. If Lucy wasn't going to step up and be the mother Ashley needed, then I would. I'd take her to swimming lessons myself, cheer her on from the sidelines, and make sure she knew someone was always watching, always proud of her. And as for Lucy and Ethan, their time was running out. I'd already seen enough to know something was happening between them. Now, with Ashley's words echoing in my mind, I was more determined than ever to bring it to light. Whatever came next, I wasn't going to let them tear our family apart without a fight. When I look back now, the betrayal feels like both a blur and a series of sharp, vivid moments etched into my memory. Filing for divorce was never something I imagined I'd have to do, but after Lucy's actions, there was no other choice. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about protecting Ashley and ensuring she grew up in a home built on trust and love, not lies. The divorce process was draining, both emotionally and mentally. I focused on one thing: ensuring Ashley's well-being. I provided the court with everything I'd collected: evidence of Lucy's affair with Ethan, the neglect she'd shown toward Ashley, and her growing detachment from our family. It was hard to relive those moments, but it was necessary. I couldn't let Lucy's choices impact Ashley's future any more than they already had. When the court granted me full custody, it felt like the weight of the world had been lifted. Ashley and I could start fresh. Lucy, on the other hand, faced the consequences of her actions. She lost the home she loved, the financial stability she'd relied on, and the family she'd taken for granted. And Ethan? He vanished as soon as the dust settled, leaving Lucy alone to pick up the pieces of a life she had destroyed with her own hands. Ashley and I have found a new rhythm. It's not easy rebuilding a life after something like this, but it's possible. Our home is quieter now, but it's filled with a kind of peace I hadn't realized was missing. I take Ashley to her swimming lessons, cheering her on from the sidelines and watching her grow more confident each day. Her laughter is brighter, her spirit lighter. She's resilient in a way that inspires me every day. This experience has taught me more than I ever wanted to know about betrayal, resilience, and starting over. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is the importance of trusting yourself. It's easy to dismiss red flags, to tell yourself you're overreacting or imagining things. But deep down, you know when something isn't right. Listen to that voice. It's there for a reason. I've also realized that it's crucial to act with purpose when faced with betrayal. The pain and anger can be overwhelming, but acting impulsively won't help you in the long run. Take time to process, plan, and protect what matters most. For me, that was Ashley. Every decision I made was about her well-being, ensuring she felt loved, secure, and supported. Letting go of what you can't control is another hard but necessary step. I couldn't change what Lucy had done, no matter how much it hurt. Holding on to the anger and resentment would have only poisoned me further. Letting go doesn't mean forgiving. It means choosing to move forward for your own sake. Finally, I've learned that rebuilding is possible, even when it feels like everything has fallen apart. The road to healing is slow and sometimes painful, but each step forward is a victory. Surround yourself with people who support you. Focus on what matters, and give yourself the grace to start over. Lucy's actions may have shattered our family, but they don't define me or Ashley. We're stronger than that. We're building a life that's honest, stable, and filled with love. For anyone out there going through something similar, know this: you will get through it. The pain might feel insurmountable now, but there's a future waiting for you. A future that's brighter than you can imagine. Keep moving forward, and don't let someone else's betrayal define your story.